Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. I will report this bill with amendment and so divided presently. Members, we now move to further consideration of the Arts Council of New Zealand, Aotearoa Bill. When we were last considering the bill, we had reached part 2. Grant Robertson had the call and has 4 minutes and 25 seconds remaining if he so wishes. The question is that part 2 stand part. I call Jacinda Ardern.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure to resume the debate on the Arts Council of New Zealand Toi Aotearoa bill. This was being hotly debated when we unfortunately had to cease on our last opportunity to discuss the changes that Minister Finlayson wants to make to the way that creative arts are governed. And this is essentially what this bill does. It shakes up the administration side of Creative New Zealand's 4 governing bodies. So just to recap, if I may, for the benefit of everyone watching, potentially from the community arts sector, which is particularly affected by this bill. The purpose of the bill, according to the government, is to replace Creative New Zealand's 4 governing bodies, which currently includes the Arts Council, with a single board called the Arts Council, and it comprises of 13 members. Now, that's probably the most significant element of this bill, is that it will be a significant consolidation of the membership, Mr. Chair, and that's something that in particular we've expressed serious concerns about. Our significant concerns relate to the ability of the voices of, in particular, Pacific Island, Māori, ethnic community, younger artists to contribute to the vision of Creative New Zealand, currently governed by 4 bodies, down into just a single Arts Council. And that was something that was supported by those who've made submissions, Mr. Chair, on this bill. In particular, replacing the Te Waka Toi Committee with just 4 qualified persons to represent Māori was something we had significant concern over, and we have spoken to that in particular. And the response that came from the Minister in the chair at that time, as I recall, was that the legislation allowed the ability to set up subcommittees. And so, for instance, he clarified through questions that it would be possible for a pseudo Te Waka Toi Committee to be a faux Te Waka Toi Committee, as it were, to be established under the bill anyway, which begs the question, why then is there the need for the legislation if the legislation empowers the Council to be able to do that anyway? Well, I think what we'll find is that it won't have the same standing as that previous committee. In fact, obviously strongly weighted instead to reduce a reduction through 4 qualified persons being required to represent Māori on a council of 13 members instead. But the appointment process for those individuals is something worthy of discussion. I think we should always put scrutiny into these processes, given in the past we've seen, for instance, the appointment process for the Families Commission since this government has come into play has meant that we've literally ended up with a National Party Families Commission where at least 2 of the members are direct relatives of cabinet ministers. They may well be qualified because they are family members for the Family Commission. But I think that just demonstrates the importance of keeping rigour in these appointment processes, particularly when you see a significant reduction in the representation of these groups. And the same goes for the South Pacific Arts Community. It's been a committee which has been replaced by 2 members who are then given the weighty job of representing their community on the council. And that's something also we should give heed to, is just the weight of that those particular roles for those 6 individuals. But I want to come speaking specifically to Part 2's Community Arts Provider section, which sets out that the Arts Council may designate community art providers. Anybody it states involved in community arts, including any local authority, may apply in writing to the Arts Council to be designated as a community arts provider. Couple of questions this begs then. To what extent do we believe that this initiation by local authorities themselves is likely to take place? There are certainly councils that I know this is not a high priority for them in terms of delivery. And secondly, Mr Chair, in fact, it's not really included, Mr Chair. Thank you. It's not really included in the well-being. Well, the well-beings aren't included, let's be honest, for local government. And so not sure how realistic the notion of this being instigated by local council will be when you see such variation in their belief in their role in the provision of the arts, or even indeed recreation, more so recreation. In fact, we've seen a real shift over time, I think, in the way that at a local body level there's been a decision to move away from considering the arts in that overall well-being element of local body provision. So now we see a real separation of recreation being maintained, because that's sports and solid things like grounds and engagement and activities like that, and to the detriment of involving, for instance, in amongst all of that provision, things like dance, which is the 8th most participated sport or recreation form in New Zealand. Tens of thousands of New Zealanders participate in dance in some form in New Zealand. Interpretive dance, probably for cutting. I don't think cutting shapes on the dance floor is factored in. It's literally is a robust survey which tells us that New Zealanders do participate in that form of creative expression. And so, to what extent has that really been captured by local councils now? To what extent? And to what extent should we be leaving it up to their instigation to make an approach by a local authority to the Arts Council to be designated a community arts provider? I want to use a specific example here. Tauranga, for instance, in some elements of council provision, strong, a fantastic gallery space. You know, they really pay homage to Nigel Brown in that area and a lot of local pride there. On the flip side, want to charge for library books. You know, you see a real division in the way that some of that council decides to treat what we would consider public good and the well-beings. Another example, Morrinsville, the Matamatapiako District Council there, has the benefit, the blessing of the Wallace Gallery, a fantastic collection which has had significant funding, as you well know, Mr Chair, via that wonderful donation by Sir James Wallace into that township. What provision has the council made for that wonderful facility? In fact, I know it's a highly contentious facility now because they don't necessarily believe that it's within their core duty to provide that facility. And that's one of our concerns, Mr Chair, with this section of the bill. And that's why, you know, some of the things that we want to see enhanced is the ability of community arts to be bolstered by the Arts Council and not left to chance, and it's something that we've got some significant concerns around, and the extent to which we need to put a little bit more robust guidance around community arts development, because to what degree will we see an even-handed approach in the way that decentralised level of funding is meant to be treated, particularly given a community arts policy is yet to be completed, as far as I know. So these are some of the issues that we think we remain concerned about, because yes, we do support decentralisation, the ability of communities to drive what they desire to see in their local areas around community arts provisions, but to what extent are the provisions in this bill really satisfying that? Because how many of those local areas will be able to meet the threshold test to be designated as a community arts provider if they don't, for instance, have the support of their local council? You know, the locals there maybe, have a huge amount of enthusiasm and desire, but if the Arts Council is only able to designate a body as a community arts provider if it's satisfied that A, the body complies with guidelines set by the Council for community art providers, and B, the body represents in relation to the arts either a specific geographical area or defined community of interest, you would imagine that they would be interested in the local council's view on that. And if they don't have support of the local council, again, perhaps Madam Aotearoa wouldn't support a move like that, then what happens to them? I have heard some argue that that just demonstrates there's not enough desire in the community and not enough backing, and therefore so be it. But how fair is that on those who are living in those geographic regions not to have access in that way?
Call Tracy Martin.
Kia ora. Thank you, Mr Chair. Rise on behalf of New Zealand First, will we be voting against this bill? Our concerns are predominantly around the voice of community, actually.